Welcome. So often I invite us to notice what you could maybe consider to be the negative side. And so I'm sure that will happen today as well. But I also want to, we'll see if it's possible to also point to something truly wonderful. I mean, it's really, I guess you could consider it positive. So this is a dream, you just notice that. Notice that you are aware, and what you are aware of is, you could call it a kind of dream. Now, calling it a dream is not intended to be dismissive or negating or any such thing. It's really, though, just to start to see in a different way, a more helpful way, because the way that we normally are accustomed to perceiving, we notice, we think that I am this person and I exist in this subjective universe. So I am an object amid a universe of objects, the universe itself being this enormous object, the biggest object. And that I am thereby subject to the laws or the whims of the objects of this universe. Well, now there's of course a level at which that's true. I'm not going to deny that. I mean, if you jump up, you'll come back down, because there are certain laws, and we want to be aware of those laws, because if we take something to a unnecessary extreme and try to apply it at the wrong level, it will only result in more unpleasantness. So, but that aside, we want to start to see that that's only one way of seeing. That's only one way of seeing, and that it's not the most accurate way of seeing. So what we want to start to notice is that, much like when you go to sleep at night and you have a nighttime dream, you notice that in that nighttime dream, there's all of this occurrence in the nighttime dream. So there's a universe in the dream. There's a dream universe, right? You notice, and there's a dream self. There's a dream character. There's dream objects, dream reality, dream existence. And when you wake up, you say, oh, it was a dream. So you know it was upon waking, you recognize that it was a dream. And when we say, oh, it was a dream. So if it was we have a bad dream, we call it a bad dream, but it's not necessarily bad. We call it a bad dream. We have a difficult dream. We have a stressful dream. When we wake up, we say, oh, whew, it was just a dream. And what do we mean by that is there's a realization that, oh, that I was not an object in an objective universe. Rather, all of those objects existed in me. And who am I? I am, in that moment, there's a realization. It may not be fully conscious, but there's a realization on some level. I am that awareness in which all of this appears. All the objects are appearing in awareness. This is obvious if we just notice it for one instant. So this is clear to us upon waking from the dream, in the nighttime dream, we wake and we realize, it was just a dream. Where did it go? It's gone. It's not here now. But when it exists, or as it seems to exist, it exists as this appearance in awareness, the awareness that I am. And this is just an ordinary recognition. Everybody has this recognition. It's not some kind of extraordinary thing. Everybody has this recognition. We just don't necessarily recognize that we're recognizing it. It's not a conscious recognition, but it's there because that's what allows us to realize, oh, it was a dream. And we can thereby say, oh, okay, I'm not subject to that. I'm not affected. Whatever happens in that dream does not affect me. Then we make the mistake. We think, oh, but I am this person. This person was having that dream. Now, wait a second. This is crazy, isn't it? Because if you just pause and you look right now, you'll realize that this one here was not there in that dream. So how could this one be having that dream? No, that's crazy. So the one who's having the dream, the one who is aware of the dream is you, but you're not this one here. This one here is akin to that one in the dream who you mistook yourself to be in the dream, right? Because in the dream, if we call it a bad dream, then, whatever bad things are happening, the only way that you can perceive that it's bad is because there's a reference point, the relative reference point. That relative reference point you take to be yourself, the dream character. You say, oh, this is happening to me, right? You don't care if it's happening to somebody else. I mean, maybe a little bit, but you don't really care, right? The same as you might read about some terrible thing happening to somebody halfway across the world, and you say, oh, that's so sad, and my heart goes out to them. But then you put down the thing and you go about your day. Because you're not making the mistake of thinking that it's happening to you. So you see, in the dream, the only reason that we call it a bad dream is because we make the mistake of, I am the dream character. I am this one who's having these things happen to it. But then you can, when you're awake, you can realize, oh, but I was not that one. See, that's the realization. That's what allows you to say, oh, it was just a dream, because you realize, oh, I was not that one. Oh, whatever was happening to that one in that dream, that's not happening to me. Whether it was great or terrible, right? You win the lottery, it doesn't change anything upon waking, because the realization, oh, that wasn't happening to me. If you were killed in the dream, upon waking, you realize, oh, but it didn't happen to me. But then you notice what happens is immediately we make the mistake and we say, but I am this one. Now, here's the thing to see, is that this right now is exactly the same as that dream. You see? So all of this is happening. Where is it happening? It's happening here in awareness, isn't it? You are aware. You don't need to think about it. You just notice it. If you think about it, then you start getting yourself tied up. But you can just, in an instant, just notice. It's obvious. You are aware. So I said this is good news. Why is this good news? This is very, very, very good news. It's the best news, because you see, just like what happens in this dream, whatever's happening in the dream, we're making the mistake of it's happening to me. So if it's a bad dream, you say, all these bad things are happening to me. Oh no, what do I do? How do I fix it? How do I solve all of these troubles? But clearly, the trouble only resolves upon waking, right? Because upon waking, what becomes clear is it does not apply to me. None of that has touched me. Has made no impact whatsoever. There's not even well, sometimes we feel like there's a residue, but eventually that becomes clear too. That residue is still because there's still some mistake being made that, somehow it applies to me. Well, then we jump through these hoops. We say, well, there's this psyche. right? We say, oh, or the spirit, and the spirit or the psyche was there in the dream, and it's still here embedded in this one that I am. So then the residue carries over because of this invisible thing that was there and is here. But that's all mental gymnastics, because the revelation that is available and that we've all had from time to time is that in an instant, it's realized that that does not apply to me. Has not affected me. So in much the same way, you see, in this waking dream, this waking state, we say, oh, I have all these problems. I got to do something about all of it. And who has these problems? You have to notice who has the problems. This one here, right? This one has the problems. The same as the waking character. I mean, the dreaming character, the dream character has problems in the dream. So this one has the problems. If this one doesn't, if this one's not here, there's no problem, right? How do you know that's true? Well, because in this waking state, you have problems, right? So you have relationship problems, you have financial problems, you have health problems. That kind of sums it up, right? Those are the problems. They kind of broadly fit into those categories, but we could just say problems. You have problems. All of the problems, notice that this is true. All of those problems apply to this one, this character, this one that you take yourself to be. Because notice when you go to sleep at night, or anytime, but if you know, we usually sleep at night. If you sleep at night, when you sleep at night, in deep sleep, no problem. Also, this one disappears. This one's not there. Similarly, in the dream state, right, these problems disappear because this one disappears. Now, there might be a similar one. It depends on the nature of the dream. There might be a similar one with similar problems that appears in the dream, but it might be a totally different one with totally different problems. But this one disappears. This one's not there. This one's not in the dream because this one only exists in the waking state. This is the waking character. So these problems only pertain to this character, and this character only exists in the waking state. The dream problems only exist for the dream character in the dream state. In deep sleep, there's no problem because there's no one for them to apply to. And we're so accustomed to noticing only the problems that when there's no problem, we say there's nothing there. This is where people get hung up on this. When I refer to the deep sleep state, where people usually get hung up is because they ask questions about it. They say, well, I don't know. I don't really know. It doesn't seem like I'm aware of the deep sleep state. Well, clearly you are. I mean, it's just obvious that you are. I mean, it's just sort of one of those things where it's sort of like those it's impossible to really explain how, if you don't recognize that you're aware of deep sleep, then it's really kind of impossible to use words to point you to it. You just kind of have to look and open your narrow focus so that you can just sort of take it all in, and then all of a sudden it pops and you realize, oh yes, I am aware even of deep sleep. It's sort of like those what are they called? Stereograms, I think, the magic images that looks just like kind of chaos, and you have to look through it. You have to relax the focus, and then all of a sudden this image appears. It's kind of like that. You just have to relax that focus. Here we're not talking specifically and exclusively the focus of the eyes, although that's helpful too. But it's just it's like the whole focus of the fixation of this of the self. And you just let that relax. And I'm inviting you to do that right now, by the way. Okay. So you just let that relax, let that kind of soften so that the focus is not so tight and narrow. Let it soften. And then you can just, it kind of will just pop for you. You'll realize, oh yes, I am aware. Now you can notice that this awareness, same awareness is aware of deep sleep, in which there's really virtually no content. And so there's a small amount of content, very, very, very small amount of content, because it's just we could call it the dormant mind, the sleeping mind, because now, well, that gives it away. You notice, okay, in the deep sleep state, the mind is asleep. Well, now you kind of have the secret, which is, what is all of this? This is all mind. All of this is the mind in a particular state, particular quality of the stream of objective perception. But notice, same awareness. Same awareness. So awareness, and this is an important thing. So understand, when I say what I'm about to say, don't try and make sense of this according to your current understanding. Don't do that. Instead, see what's being pointed to. Okay. So the one awareness is continuous. One awareness is always true, always what is, always you, always here, always now. So see what's being pointed to there. Because we turn to the mind objectifies awareness. It says, well, awareness is like the big thing, or however we conceptualize it. Awareness is this thing, and I am that thing. But notice, that's not what's being pointed to. Awareness prior to anything. So all things are appearing in awareness. So awareness is not an object. That's why you can't grasp it with the mind. But you don't have to grasp it with the mind, because in the same way that this is the same mistake about, oh, I'm not aware in deep sleep. Because of course you're not aware in the usual way that we understand awareness, which is being able to grasp with the mind in deep sleep, because the mind is asleep. So that function, which we mistake as awareness, which is a grasping function, that function is asleep. That function is not operating. So we said, well, I guess I'm not here, because we're making the mistake of thinking I am that grasping function. But notice, again, you just let everything soften and relax at all levels, and don't give any particular attention to anything, any complaint or anything that says, oh, I'm not able to relax. Then it's not important. You see, if you can't relax it, it's not important. So this direction, this instruction to soften, to relax, to let go, it's not about you having to achieve some state. It's pointing to what is already completely relaxed, what is already completely open. So if there's some doubt or concern or objection that arises, as, oh, I can't do it, because there's some sensation, there's some thought, there's some image that's appearing that is saying, this is somehow interfering. See, oh, this sensation means that I can't let go. Then it's not important. You just have to recognize that's not it. That's not what's being pointed to. So you then just don't grasp the grasping. You just, if the grasping happens, let the grasping happen, but don't grasp the grasping. And then you just see it's all just streaming through. It's all appearing, disappearing. And you notice that you are simply aware. And this awareness doesn't depend upon any grasping. There can be grasping. Grasping doesn't interfere with awareness. So awareness is not diminished because of grasping. It's just that it's in many ways easier to recognize when there's a momentary absence of grasping. That's all. So it's just a, don't mistake the pointing or the process for the realization. The realization is available independent of any conditions, but certain conditions are conducive to the recognition. That's all. So don't think that you have to achieve some state or some success with some process in order to have the realization. The realization is here. It's true. It's just what is. You are, and you are aware. So I said there was good news in all of this. Okay, so the good news is that we keep on making this mistake of thinking that there's some condition that, and you have to understand that what I'm pointing to is the same mistake that we make over and over and over and over and over and over, regardless of the level. So are there levels of consciousness, we could call it? Yes, of course, that's a phenomenon that we can describe. Yes, of course, you relatively can seem to have greater levels of awareness, greater levels of perception. However, that's a trap, you see. It's true, and it's also a trap because we're still making the same mistake regardless. So this is why you can have very expansive perception and tremendous power. You see, there are people who have very big power. And that comes from this expansive perception. Okay. So they have this great power, but they can still be just as deluded as anybody else because of this same one mistake. And that one mistake is still thinking that there's some condition that's necessary. Now, there are conditions necessary for greater power, right? Because in order to, that power is inherent. It's inherent and it is nature, right? That power is nature. That power, which is nature, is everywhere. But that power that is nature, that is everywhere, it only flows in abundance where where the conditions are right for that. Because the nature of this creation is that there is polarized, right? So there's the nature of the expression is some places will have greater flow, some will have less flow. Some will flow with a particular color, particular flavor, particular this, particular that. So it's indifferent, you see. Nature doesn't have a it's not concerned with the ethics or the morality of any of it. It's just, it is, and it expresses. So, great power, but that great power can be for what we would consider to be evil or good, right? Or anything in between. But we make the mistake of equating greater power with greater freedom. And this is this mistake, because all we're doing is we're tethering ourselves step by step. Again and again, we rechain ourselves to the conditions. So we say, only when I'm able to overcome my problems, only when I'm able to wield a certain amount of power, only when I'm able to accomplish these things, only when certain things are expressing, then I am free, then I am okay, then I am happy, then I am at peace, only then. So make the same mistake. We say, not now, only then. And you notice, okay, things in certain ways, maybe they seem to get better and better, and you're accomplishing goals and achieving things. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that that's wrong. Of course, that's, again, nature doesn't seem to really discriminate. Nature is, it's not like you're going to be punished because you achieve and accomplish and express and all that. That's not like the goal of life is to shut it all off. I mean, it exists, it's fine. But in parallel with that, you see, it's like these two parallel tracks, and in parallel, so while we're expressing, we also want to discover what is unconditional, and we want to give at least equal importance to the unconditional. So this is where we are most challenged, but this is where there's really, really good news, because just as we can wake from the bad dream and realize, oh, what a relief, it was just a dream. All of these problems and all of the conditions that we're setting ourselves up to have to achieve before we can be okay, all of that, no matter how big, no matter how heavy, no matter how concrete it seems, no matter what, all of that is no more substantial than just a little wisp of wind, no heavier than a tiny feather, because it's all in awareness that you are. The same as the nighttime dream, you see. That's why in the nighttime dream, it can be the biggest, most horrible problem. You could have, the entire, you're like, could be like Atlas, and you're holding up the whole of creation, got that kind of weight on your shoulders crushing you. And in an instant, you wake up, and where does that problem go? It instantly vanishes. So you see, it's unconditional, because even if, you see, now this happens, so people have what they call lucid dreams. Okay, so you can actually wake up even as the dream continues. So you see that there's not even a condition there that the dream must stop. The dream can continue, but you can be awake. So as the dream continues, now imagine this, that you're having a dream, and in this dream, all kinds of terrible things are happening. And then you wake up, and so the dream is continuing. All of those same things are still playing out. This is where we get really hung up. But you have to just open to it, okay? You are awake now. The dream is continuing, and all of those same terrible things, there's a momentum to them. You see, because even though the logic and the order of the dream state is different than that of the waking state, there is a logic and an order to it, and that has to be obeyed. That's not, we don't well, to a certain extent, but there's a certain structure of how it is that we have created, you see. So the creation has a structure, and if that structure, which this can happen, we see this happen to people, it's somewhat rare. Those are usually the people that we tend to put up on a pedestal and glorify, because they're totally non-functional. But we say, oh, look at these people, they're very spiritually elevated. I won't deny it, there's some truth to it, but it's also it's so funny that and tragic that we glorify those people, which maybe we should, but that we then think that's the only way, even though that's not really what that's not for us. But you see, in those people, what happens is they're all of a sudden, that all the logic, all the order of all the creation just disappears. there's still the appearance, but not there. There's nothing that tethers them to that any longer in any way. So, then we can say, well, then miracles seem to happen around these people, because around these people, there's like a field in which the normal order and logic doesn't apply. There's a transcendent reality that is greater. So however that works, you see, it defies our understanding. But look, this is again where we get hung up, because we say, well, look, you have to see this. Look for yourself and see how this is true in your experience. That you have moments of awakening. You have moments. I mean, they happen in these meetings, not because I have some kind of special power, but simply because of the pointing. I'm inviting you to look. If you look as I'm pointing, then it has to happen. It has to. Right now, just like that, just for one instant, just see without making any effort to collapse it into something. And then you see how much effort goes into trying to collapse it into something, but you feel compelled to do it. You just have to see it. That's all. Don't try to fix it. Just see it. Just see. For one instant, there's just wide openness, and there's total peace, total clarity, total okayness. There's no problem, and there's no one for there to be a problem for. But then there's this very strong habit. It's a compulsion. Oh, I've got to make sure I'm okay. Where am I? Who am I? What is everything okay? So then we collapse it. Oh yes, I remember. I am this one, and I have these problems. Let me just check and make sure. Oh yeah, that pain is still there. Yep, and let me check my bank account. Oh yeah, that problem is still there. Okay, you've got to verify it, but observe how much effort goes into that. In this one instant of no effort, there is no effort. It's like deep sleep. Absolutely no effort. The difference between this and deep sleep is only that in the reason for that experience of no problem and we could say it's like surrender or openness in deep sleep is because the habit of fixation on the mind is still there, but the mind is dormant, so there's nothing to fixate on. So it's like unconscious, you see. I mean, we're aware, but it's unconscious awareness. But here, what I'm pointing to is you are not unconscious. You are conscious in this one instant, and in one instant, you are conscious of no effort. So you see now, the only difference is that in this state, it's conscious, and well, two differences. Okay, one is that it's conscious, and the other is that the mind is not dormant. So there's a lot of appearance activity. So the tendency is to, again, fixate on that content. It's just a habit. Okay, but I said there's good news. So, so far, I'm not sure that I've really made it clear what the good news is. But what I really want, the good news is this, that the peace and freedom that is glimpsed from time to time or in deep sleep is always the supreme truth. It's the supreme reality. It's always here. It's transcendent of all of the appearances. And it's unconditional. So it's not even that you need to alter anything in order for it to be true. It is true. You can just recognize the truth of that you are always aware. So remember what I said about that, though. Don't try and See, with the mind, if you turn to the mind will argue. The mind will say, well, I'm not so sure that I'm always aware. And it will come up with examples of when it thinks it's not aware. But what I'm suggesting here is don't do that. Instead, because that's looking in the wrong way. Instead, accept that what's being pointed to is not what you already know. It's not what's in the mind already. It's not something that can be objected to. It's a transcendent reality that's being pointed to. It's being pointed to with words that you already have associated with a different meaning. That's the only problem. We have to use words to do the pointing, but forget about what you think those words already mean, and instead just notice what's being pointed to, which is that there is a transcendent, eternal, continuous reality, which is, I'm calling awareness, and that is you. And just see the truth of what that is pointing to. Now, the objections will arise in the light of that. That's okay. But just see how much effort is involved in trying to grasp at those objections, and instead just let them come and go as they do. They come and go the same as everything else, you see. It's like the clouds come and go, the sun rises and sets, the weather changes, seasons change, all these things come and go. You don't need to grasp at them, and in the same way, you don't need to grasp at any of these other things. So just see that. Now, why is this good news? This is very good news because we don't have to make all the effort to bring about the circumstances and the conditions. We don't have to do that. We don't have to wait something out. We don't have to keep playing that game of waiting until, and then you fill in the blank. You notice what it is that you're waiting for. We're all waiting for something, many things, right? I'm waiting until I feel better. I'm waiting until one day the depression will go away. I'm waiting until I have positive, optimistic thoughts. I'm waiting until the pain disappears. I'm waiting until I have a vision of God. I'm waiting until whatever. We're waiting for something to happen. We're waiting for some conditions. And then you notice in that waiting, what are we doing? We're making the same mistake over and over and over of saying, because those conditions are going to apply to who? To this one. So we keep thinking, I am this one. I'm not happy with the conditions of this one. So the only way for me to be happy is to have the right conditions for this one. But then you notice those conditions never come about. Or if they do, of course, they're subject to time. They're temporary. So they'll come and then they'll go. And I can tell you from experience, and I'm sure you can recognize this true too, but it is, in many ways, it's far worse for those things to come, those conditions to come about and then go away than it is for them never to come about. Because when they come about, we think, I've finally arrived. And this is why people become spiritual seekers. People become spiritual seekers oftentimes because they have an experience. They have some experience that sets them on this path. And the experience is one that then they equate with the goal. They want to recreate that, or some even more grandiose variation on that theme. And what they don't realize is that they're just, again, making the same mistake. So now they're getting greater power. No problem with that. So please don't make the mistake now of thinking, oh, I've got to shut that down. You can't. If any effort to shut that down is just doing more of the same, you see. Then your mind now has grasped at a new strategy. It says, oh, wait, now I see I was making this mistake. I was just trying to get more power. So now in order to get what I want, see more conditions, I need to shut that down. Same thing, same problem. Now you see. So at every level of consciousness, I'll put in air quotes, same mistake is being made, but we keep thinking, no, it's not the same mistake. This is new, but we're not seeing truly because we're still fixated on the dream, on the appearance. So why is this good news? I see, I doubted that I would be able to do it. I know it's good news, but holy cow, to convey it. Because we normally think that good news, just notice when I say good news, what happens? Notice what happens. So remember, this is not like, I'm not like transmitting Shaktipat. This isn't like that kind of thing. All I'm doing is pointing for you to see this truth that's already here. It's not about giving you something. It's just for you to see what's already true. So you have to look for yourself. It's a process of looking repeatedly, glimpsing, repeatedly seeing. And in this seeing, bit by bit, that habit of making the unnecessary effort that produces this sense of suffering softens, because there's a realization. See, and this, again, it's tricky because then we think, oh, that's what I have to do in order to have this outcome. No, there's no condition for peace. There's no condition for truth. But it's just a process. It's a technique that if as this habit of doing this certain habitual effort softens, then what's revealed is the light that's always here, that light of awareness. Now, that's always true, so that we don't have to go about it a particular way. So don't think that anything is necessary here in terms of any conditions or any particular anything. But there is a certain process, I guess you could say, that I am pointing out and inviting you to explore, because this can be helpful for gaining clarity. See, the language is funny, but just keep looking. You just keep looking repeatedly. Don't try and grasp it, because that's counterproductive, but just let go for an instant and just notice. And this is why this is the good news. In this one instant, just notice in one instant right now, make no effort, and you just see in this one instant, there's no problem. There is peace now. And then you notice again, what this habit of checking, wait a second, it says, wait a second, I'm not so sure. I've got to make sure. Am I okay? Are there still problems? And sure enough, oh yeah, no, there's still problems. I'm still unhappy, still having these negative thoughts, still have a gloomy view of life, still things just don't seem quite right, still that pain, still, oh yeah, there's that problem. I'm still the person I'm still having problems with, So we keep checking, but each time just see. So for an instant, again, make no effort. And then just notice the effort involved in checking, in, again, trying to become something. In becoming something or someone, now you've got all of these problems that you're shouldering, trying to solve. But for one instant, again, just don't make any effort and see how easy it is. There's total disappearance of all problems because there's no, that grasping is not here for one instant. Of course it returns out of habit. But you just have to keep seeing. Now, again, why is this good news? Because, it kind of is maybe not clear why it's good news, but it's the reason I'm saying it's very good news is because you don't have to achieve anything. See, you have to look and see how you're still, we all make this mistake, how we're still trying to achieve something. We want some kind of objective outcome that we can use to prove to ourselves when we're checking, because that's the mistake. We just keep checking, right? We just, for an instant, total okayness, complete unconditional peace. It's here, it's present. This is the reality. It's only in the next instant when we make this effort again to check and wait, I gotta make sure. Am I okay? Are there problems? Do I have to do anything? It's only in this instant of this grasping, the effort, that again, these problems seem to appear. So each time we just don't make any effort, we can glimpse this truth, which is, as I've pointed out, it's eternal. It's always here. It's reliable. You see, it doesn't depend upon the absence of the grasping, but in the absence of grasping, it remains. See, we're making no effort and this remains. Now notice again how all of the problems have to do with this one, with this character that you take yourself to be. So all of the burden, the weight, the heaviness, all the misery and all of that, it pertains to this one. But for an instant, make no effort. Just drop it all, just for an instant. So it's like you're in deep sleep while awake, just for an instant. And in this one instant, just tell the truth. Notice that in this one instant, there's no problem. There's no identification as anyone either. It's only in the next moment when, again, you check. Is there a problem? Am I okay? Do I have to do anything? All of a sudden, that burden seems to reappear. Okay, so I have not yet even begun to succeed in pointing out why this is good news. So this pervasive model that we've been given is the one of effort and achievement, you see. So in all domains, we've been hoodwinked into believing that happiness depends upon achievement of some kind. Just see how that's true. We think, so the name of this meeting, the title of this meeting is Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness, right? So health, wealth, happiness kind of just sums up what we're looking for, right? Health, wealth, and happiness. So in each of these domains, in order to achieve health, for example, we've been told when I say the word health, what comes to mind? There are certain icons, images, ideas that come to mind because those have been impressed upon us. You see, so it's going to be slightly different for each person, but you've got something, it's the athlete or the yogi or the diet guru or the, whoever who has made effort to overcome some challenge and to achieve. And what did they achieve? Well, we call that health. So that's what we believe on it unconsciously. That impression is there. So you might have, evolved greatly intellectually, and you might say, "Oh, I don't believe that anymore." Well, you're fooling yourself. Just notice, I say the word health, what appears for you? And that appears from your subconscious. That's driving the boat, so to speak. You see, this whole thing is being driven by the subconscious. The conscious part of the self is very small in comparison. So you may consciously say, well, I don't believe that, but subconsciously you do. It's not, you don't have to be ashamed of that. That's just the state of things. So wealth, what is wealth? And just right away, what appears for you. And you see the same thing. Money, 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 right? Money, things. And you might object intellectually, say, oh, I don't believe any of that. And I've done all this work on myself, and I know that's not real wealth, but it's there. The impression is there. So as long as we're in denial about that, it's fairly hopeless. We have to be willing to tell the truth that I'm a bundle of impressions. These impressions are impersonal, but they're insane. So I don't have to take them personally. I don't have to get all uptight about it because these impressions are there. Just I want to tell the truth about it. I've got all these unhelpful impressions. Happiness. What is happiness? And again, you just see what's there. These certain images, certain ideas that are there, that are conditional. They're achievements. There's something that needs to be done because you're comparing your perception of your current state to that. And you say, well, this is not that. So there has to be something done. And who's going to do that? Well, I am. But this is, again, the same mistake that we make at every level. So we can gain great power. We could have very small power. We could have medium power. We could have very great power. But as long as we make the same mistake, we'll never actually know the real truth or trust in the real truth of health, wealth, and happiness, because they will continue to be like a carrot dangling on a stick just out in front of us, that there's still more that we have to do. And I promise you that you just have to see how your mind will make exceptions to this. It will say, yeah, that's true for 99% of it, but not for this one thing. It'll say, I know that I'm a terrible person. I know I'm a terrible human being, and I need to not be a terrible human being. And it's like, yeah, about all that other stuff, fine. But about this one thing, I'm so selfish. I can't be selfish. This one thing. Or, well, yes, about all those other things, fine. I admit it. But this rage that's there all the time, this is unacceptable. This certainly has to be, because I look, the Buddha wasn't a rageaholic. Jesus wasn't a rageaholic, except for, the time in the temple. Maybe not the best example. But, we say, whatever, we've got these ideas about what has to be so that we can arrive there. But you see, that's just keeps us asleep. So now I want to mention, we've got a few more minutes, but I have, my family has some needs today, so we're not going to do a Q&A. So we'll wrap up in a few minutes. Okay, so see this now. And this is why it's good news, is that liberation is now. Freedom is now. True health, wealth, and happiness is now. Anything other than that is a lie. And that lie exists only when you're asleep. When you're awake, there can't be a lie because you're awake. You see all, you know all as it is, not in any other way. It's just obvious to you. So it's like if you're, you know, when you're in that, when you're asleep, all kinds of fantasies can seem like truth to you. And you have to understand that's the thing about being asleep, that these are delusions, but they seem like truth. And I'll even briefly explain, because why that would be is that it's just habit, it's just conditioning. It's the same reason that the water in the Colorado River, or any river, but I'm using the Colorado River because the Colorado River is the river that runs through the Grand Canyon. And if you're not familiar with the Grand Canyon, it's a really big canyon. Same reason why the water runs through the Colorado River and not elsewhere. Because it is established. There's a habit, there's a groove there. And that every time there is a habit, that habit, so long as we continue to energize it, so the energization of it is like the water running through it. As long as we keep putting water through it, what's going to happen? It's going to further establish that groove. Now, because of that, and now we've got the Grand Canyon, and imagine you're at the bottom of the Grand Canyon and you're looking up and it's like, I don't know, a mile high. Okay. You say, well, there ain't no other option than this. This is just how it is, you say, right? Because what are you going to do about the Grand Canyon? And this is what is happening to us, where we just keep energizing. Notice this is what I've been pointing out. In an instant right now, just make no effort. Just drop it for one instant. And you see in this one instant, there's no energy that's flowing. It's just pure potential, but it's not, in physics, we differentiate between potential energy and kinetic energy, right? So potential, one of the Newtonian laws, there's no energy is neither created nor destroyed. It just changes form. So we say there's potential energy, which is not expressing, there's no action, there's no motion occurring, but we recognize that that energy is there. And then there's kinetic energy. So here in this instant of wakefulness, just making no effort, you can notice, you can feel this aliveness, the sense that I am. But notice in this instant, before you make the effort to collapse it into something, it's just pure potential. So now it's like there's no water flowing through that river. But the water is here. This pure potential is here. So because that habit is so strong, I've got to do it. I've got to let the water flow through that river. I've got to express this potential as something. Then we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over. This is because we're unconscious, asleep. But now here's a new possibility. Okay, so we'll, as we often do, we'll conclude with this new possibility, which is first to recognize the perfection and the unconditional peace of this pure potential. So for one instant, make no effort and just see and tell the truth of this wide open okayness, this unconditional peace that's here. And it's okay for it just to be a glimpse. You don't need to convince your mind. This is not about affirming over and over and over, I am unconditional peace, because the mind doesn't need to get on board. It might, that would be wonderful, but it's always going to be the mind can only be like a faint shadow of the actuality. So we want to start to know and trust this primary reality. So just for an instant, make no effort and just notice that I am and all is well. And now we want to, and so this is where the good news becomes even better news. So the good news starts with this realization that the truth is now, and the truth is good news, and the truth is unconditional. So we just recognize that in this one instant of making no effort. We just notice that. And then it becomes even better news, because then we realize that there is nothing that can interfere, actually. So even though we have this, I used a lot of words and metaphor of the Colorado River and the groove and all this other stuff, and there's truth to that relatively. But notice that it's this, in the instant that you wake up from the dream is realized to not be an objective reality that you are subject to. Instead, it is realized that all of that is simply an appearance in the awareness that I am. So it no longer has any sway over you. You are not subject to it. It's only because of a residual unconsciousness that we fall back into that conditioning, because it's not completely eradicated. There's still some wisps of the dream that remain there because we don't become fully awake. But in the more wakefulness there is that's shined forth, all of the, anywhere where there's some residual sleepiness or slumber is eradicated, because it's like the darkness is not a power of its own. It's only the absence of the light. And of course, there can't really be an absence of light. It's only just a trick of the mind. But that's all we're doing, is we're shining this wakefulness. So now you just notice again, make no effort, just like that. And you notice this wide open awareness, the light of awareness that is self shining and complete and independent. It is the one reality that you are this. And then we imagine, and here's where we transcend the grooves, we transcend the Grand Canyon, because we realize that's only a dream, and that dream does not have any power over us. So we can fearlessly shine this light of awareness and know the truth, which is that whatever is illumined is none other than this pure awareness. However it appears, however I perceive it, I can remain steadfast in this shining of the pure light, and know and trust that whatever the dream is, it will be revealed as it truly is. So we don't have to react, we just simply see. So now imagine this unconditional peace expressing in your mind, your body, your relationships, and your emotions. And just see whatever is there. You just see it impersonally. It's like it's just things happening, and you just are witness to it. And you notice it's like, as this pure light of awareness shines there, the stickiness of it starts to become less sticky, starts to dissolve. It's because in order for the differentiation, for it to seem like something substantial to be maintained, there has to be a lack of conscious awareness. We have to turn away. But as we just keep seeing, without making any effort. It just comes and it goes, and you just make no effort, just allow it. And that is where we'll leave it today. So, as I said, we won't do a Q&A today. So thank you as always for joining me, and blessings to you all, and I will see you next time. Bye.